Welcome to Notepad. I'm your host Ibrahim Sani. So some companies are rather, run-of-the-mill, but some companies are quite interesting to be spoken to or spoken about. One of them is, of course, a marketing as a service company or MaaS. One of them is, of course, 2X. They consider themselves to be a pioneer in the marketing as a service industry. And of course, they have set themselves up to help businesses improve on their branding strategies as well as branding presence across various industries. They argue that their model has played a major role in enabling top B2B marketing leaders to transform their businesses in driving greater impact to lower their costs, especially in the last 2 years of the pandemic. And of course, we all know that all companies are now rather aggressively trying to get back their name on the market. The economy is opening up. However, consumer sentiment is soft. Interest rates are increasing. And of course, inflation rates are considered to be the biggest worry right now for many consumers out there. So people are wary about how they spend their ringgit. And of course, businesses are even more picky into how they want to spend their money for marketing. So joining us on the line right now is Yong Siew Mee, the Managing Director as well as the Chief People Officer of 2X Marketing. Siew Mee, thanks for taking the time to speak with us. I want to understand a little bit more about what 2X Marketing does before we go into the consumer sentiment and all the other industry items. Siew Mee.
Okay, happy to be here, Ibrahim. So 2X is a B2B digital marketing specialist firm, and we are a pioneer in the marketing as a service category. Basically, we bring the idea of outsourcing to marketing and splitting the strategy from execution. So we deliver best practice marketing at a higher consistency and capacity than in-house marketing teams or traditional agencies. To think about it, like marketing departments tend to do everything: strategy, planning, execution, technology management, and they manage agencies for a series of short-term projects. Over time, this model becomes very expensive and slow. So we offer an alternative to that.
You know, a lot of people want to argue that marketing and sales is the same thing. I always like to validate the differences between these two. This is not trying to help companies help improve their sales per se only. Am I correct? Because it's all about marketing as well. What do you think about this whole dichotomy between marketing and sales?
There is a natural tension between marketing and sales because marketing in well-run companies, marketing has a 50% responsibility to actually source for revenue, and the other 50% comes from sales themselves doing sourcing for that revenue. So marketing is a growth engine. If you want to compare the difference between the approach, sales is more short-term, so they need to close something within the quarter, within the year. Marketing tend to have medium to long-term perspective, growing advocacy, growing advocates, seeding the market with new ideas, and building pipeline that is longer term.
You know, some of the items that I want to explore is on how different sectors use marketing as a service differently. Maybe you can share with us a snapshot of how, say, for instance, folks in the F&B world operate or try to expound on or capitalize on marketing as a service versus some other consumer companies, other B2B companies. Maybe you can share with us a flavor of how different industries use or leverage on marketing as a service.
Right. So marketing as a service is actually a very new concept because we are basically asking companies to rethink how do you do marketing and take advantage of a lower cost model, because essentially it's an outsourced marketing model. B2B is our main segment. We don't actually know anything about business to consumer that much. Business to business segment is actually pretty large in the sense that we are mainly in the technology industry. There is the healthcare vertical, the professional services vertical, and manufacturing. So it's a huge industry. Our main area is actually in the US. We don't actually operate much or at all, aside from the fact that we have an office in Taman Gun, KL.
Okay, we'll go for one short break. When we come back, we'll discuss a little bit more with Yong Siew Mee, the Managing Director of 2X. We'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back. This is Notepad. Joining me on the line is Yong Siew Mee, the Managing Director and Chief People Officer of 2X Marketing. Siew Mee, let's talk a little bit more about the differences between the B2B landscape in Malaysia versus the UX. We alluded to the market just before the break. Is there a stark contrast between the two, and how have the things changed following the pandemic, and especially now with the economy reopening? What would be some of the key features that you want to look at right now?
Okay, so the primary difference is the scale. There are thousands of enterprise-sized business-to-business organizations in the US, and particularly in the technology industry alone. And I spoke about the other verticals: healthcare, professional services, manufacturing. And if you combine all that, it's huge. The size is not as big, I would say, in the Malaysian B2B landscape. I would gather it's mostly made of medium segment. That is the sizable one from Malaysia, and a bit of mix, which is the MNCs. And if you're a B2B marketer, for example, for a large foreign MNC that is operating in Malaysia, you will probably mostly be doing execution level work, adapting strategies from HQ and running localized versions of that in Malaysia. Whereas business to business marketers in the US will probably be the ones coming up with the strategy. But the common thing about the two markets is that both are having the same problem, which is this huge talent pool of experienced B2B marketers. It's a lack of it in both markets. And the pandemic has actually accelerated the war for talent. In the US, there's a shortage of experienced, expert level entrepreneur marketers. They have left the workforce to do other things, switch careers, industries, do freelance, and even start their own business. And in Malaysia, we don't see that such a big drastic shift. Digital marketing, however, is a very popular career choice right now. Most people have come to recognize that the nature of digital careers are more resilient against lockdowns, and it's also resilient against recession. And it's also a future-proof career choice. An additional point I would like to make is that with the pandemic, there's a shift towards digital remote hybrid work arrangement. And there's more acceptance in the US side, the US companies, to look for talent outside of US. So there's much more acceptance of using, for example, offshore marketing talents to counter the shortage of talents in the US. And the ability for companies to be able to tap into that will allow them to run marketing 2 to 3 times more than with the same budget, for example. So that is a very powerful tool for any marketing leader that is trying to balance what's happening in the market, what's happening in the economy right now.
Okay. But I wanna ask you a little bit more about the cost being involved, because do you feel that companies are more cost sensitive now?
Definitely. Marketing budget is the first.
Sorry. Let me rephrase. Companies are very much cost sensitive, especially when it comes to marketing. Are companies more cost sensitive now compared to before? I think that's the proper phrasing that I want to get at.
I think it is. I think marketing budget, marketing departments in general, are the first to be sacrificed in any tightening of the belt. Similar to IT budgets, similar to HR budget, to be honest. So marketing leaders, CMOs, they need to be very creative in looking for better solutions. So this new operating model is our answer to that pain point.
Okay. Do you also want to share with us some of the ability for your company, 2X, and your role in bringing scale to the B2B marketing to drive for greater impact, to drive for greater efficiency? I want to learn how 2X is actually bringing your solutions into marketing as a service for these kind of companies.
Right. So I spoke about the 2X new operating model that we are talking about, marketing as a service. What essentially it means is that we free up the internal teams to focus on strategy work that only they can do. So more time to think about bigger, like what markets to attack, what technology to deploy, what expectations to set in the marketing, etc. Execution moves to us, 2X, where we can bring standardized and highly efficient best practices, make execution more impactful at a lower cost. We bring best of strategic thinking and pragmatic execution together. I spoke about personalization. I want to speak about personalization in marketing. That's probably one of the biggest difference between business to consumer, B2C, and B2B. In B2B, we do much more personalization, and we use intent data to do marketing. And there are powerful platforms right now, like 6sense, where you can actually target hundreds of people, thousands of people through hundreds of campaigns launched at the same time. Targeting prospects that exhibit intent buying signals is a much more advanced way of using technology that is not really that common right now. So in a sense, we are here to also talk about providing qualified people, technologists that actually know how to use these modern technologies, and to accelerate some of these programs that marketing leaders have, and at the same time, increase impact at a cost that is more reasonable.
You know, just now you were talking about onshore capabilities and talent to be relied on. What would be some of the challenges that you can share with us when it comes to running an offshore operating for B2B businesses based in the US? And how does, say, 2X, for instance, overcome these whole challenges?
So I think the biggest challenge when you run an offshore operations for US market, for example, would be change management. Our model basically changes to the marketing department, how they work, how they think. So the first important step is to help clients think about the work differently, categorize them into different buckets. The day-to-day operations, execution work shifts to us, and then that can be very scary because that's literally the comfort zone of what people are used to do, and giving them up, switching gears to think something bigger is something that they have to think about how to do. So when we talk about introducing newer technology, that's another scary point for people, for our clients. In both cases, building trust is a very important step. In the first few weeks, for example, when we set up a new client, we go through introduction briefings. We go through training that the clients want us to have. And at the same time, we poke around their systems, we look around, we document the current state of what they have, and then we bring in recommendations on best practices. And then immediately this gives a positive outcome to the client. And the idea basically is to go slower at the beginning so that you can go faster later. Another key area for change management is the people culture side. Malaysians are less outspoken than Americans, and Malaysians don't naturally give suggestions or ideas as freely. And we explain to our clients that during the onboarding, this is not the team being disinterested, but rather a sign of respect to the client. So they only give suggestions when the clients ask for it. So we tell clients that, and they find it very useful to understand the cultural differences. At the same time, we also train our people to understand the other side of the culture, where they appreciate more proactiveness and being more communicative.
Okay, I understood. However, we'll go for one short break. When we come back, we'll discuss a little bit more with 2X after this. Welcome back. I have with me on the line Yong Siew Mee, the Managing Director of 2X Marketing. They are a marketing as a service company, exploring some of the ideas of how businesses need to move forward and how they should view marketing as a service in relation to improving their sales, growth, and of course, visibility in the market. Siew Mee, we've discussed at length in terms of what it is, how it's going to impact businesses. I want to look at how you think the business outlook will be for 2023, or at least second half of this year. Do you feel that consumer sentiment, because of it being soft, people are a little bit more wary of how they spend their ringgit? Do you think that this is going to impact company sales moving forward, or do you think that this is an opportunity that businesses can actually expound on and see where we can look at the opportunities for companies to, I wouldn't say exploit, I guess try to benefit from the consumer discretionary spending right now?
Right. So when it comes to doing marketing, you actually have to think about it in a counterintuitive manner, which is when the sentiments are soft, you actually have that's a great time to actually invest more in marketing, because the normal behavior of business would be, oh, let's save money because we don't know what's going to happen. The uncertainty level is quite high, and what you see is that the marketplace becomes quiet. This is actually the right time to actually invest more in advertising and do more marketing, because it's less noisy. You don't have to shout so loud or spend as much money. So it's actually a smart thing to do, actually, to spend more when people are actually pulling back. So you get to reach people, reach prospects, your clients cheaper in that sense. It is much more efficient because you are not competing with other people as much. So that's the counterintuitive thing about marketing that people probably don't know yet.
I think what you're saying is right. When consumer sentiment is soft, more effort should be put into marketing. I'd like to use perhaps one or two case studies. Companies like AirAsia or Capital A right now is one of them. They know that people are a little bit more miser. Yeah, I'd like to use that word because there are times when people are really splurging out their cash. There are times when people are really holding back. And companies like Asia would like to expound on these kind of moments. Companies like KK, Speedmart 99, they also are jumping onto the market right now, trying to see and tell the people that, hey, all prices are going up, but with us, you can actually be all okay. Our prices are still kept at bay. That kind of notion, right? Does this mean that some brands would have advantage over others? For instance, brands that are promoting more mass market appeal rather than, say, luxury appeal. Do you think that some brands and in some sectors tend to have a leg up when it comes to soft consumer sentiment? What's your view on this?
I definitely think so. It's a reflection of how well the company is being run. Usually when sentiments are soft, and it's a matter of, do you have additional cash around or budget around to actually spend it on when everybody else doesn't have, don't necessarily have that appetite to spend more. So it's the same thing with personal finances, I guess. If you have money or cash flow, that's great. Then it's a great time to buy property.
Where do you think of course, you're based in Malaysia, but I want to ask you some of the ideas that you have in the region. Some companies in Malaysia are thinking about at least trying to go abroad. Do you feel that regionalization is a good idea right now? If so, what markets would be a little bit more interesting for you that you can share with us?
Right. So I'm not an expert for regional marketing because
Okay.
my expertise is really in B2B marketing, and I've mainly operated a lot outside of Malaysia. But I think there is more awareness because of the pandemic. There's more acceptance for doing marketing using talent outside of their home country. So outsource anything. Like, for example, the most popular one is, and the most famous one that everybody knows is IT being outsourced, and then there's finance being outsourced, and then now we're talking about marketing being outsourced. So people have found ways to do it. I think this category of doing things with talent that is outside of your home country is being accelerated because of COVID. It's more acceptable. I think forward-looking leaders will take advantage of that, and basically find ways to actually do more, taking advantage of the talent that's outside of your own region, own country, and if they can do that, then it's actually very, very impactful. It's a game changer.
Final part of the questions I want to ask you is actually quite, I guess, tricky for you. When you talk about outsourcing all these other stuff, they're rather business processes, and that's why the BPO idea came about. But marketing needs to tackle the psychography of the consumer, the demography of the consumer. Some nuances in social cultures are also important. If you outsource marketing to another player outside of the market that you're trying to operate in, what would be some of the assurances that you can give when the people that are doing the marketing are not the people who are buying, not from that tribe, not from that community? How do you bridge that cultural differences?
Right. So that's why we are very clear with our model. We split the strategy, the thinking, the culture side of your market. So your clients, our clients, they are expert in that area. So they do the thinking for that part. Our expertise come in execution and the programs. So what we bring to the table is best practices. We've seen across so many industries, lookalike industries with this client or that client. And what we've done is that we have tried much more things than any client would have in their own time or space. So we bring in different perspectives, different ideas at that level. So the cultural aspect is something that we don't necessarily have to tackle because of the model split that we have. And that's also the reason why you can see a lot of benefit from this model. We basically stay in the sweet spot of what we can do, and not take over things that we are not good at. So this is also the balance that is making our model very successful. Imagine an outsourced company saying that we can do better strategizing for your market outside of the home country. So even that is a very hard sell. So we don't talk like that. So we don't think that way as well.
Okay, fantastic. Siew Mee, that was a very interesting conversation. And of course, if you've missed any part of our conversation, just head on back to astro.com, look for Notepad over there. But for now, that was Yong Siew Mee, the Managing Director and the Chief People Officer of 2X Marketing. That's it from me. My name is Ibrahim Sani. Catch you in the next one.